Welcome to the weekend edition of the Fear and Greed Business Headlines. I'm Michael Thompson, and hello, Sean Aylmer.
Hello, Michael.
Now, Sean, on weekdays, it's all about the Fast Five, the top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. On the weekend, we still keep it to 5 minutes, but what we're going to do is pick out the biggest story of the week, our favourite story, the sleeper story, which is one that tends to fly under the radar a bit, and the most remarkable story. So, let's get into it. I'm going to kick us off today because I think the biggest story of the week was a pretty easy one. The arrival in Australia of the Omicron coronavirus strain. It's looking more and more likely that it might be more transmissible than Delta, but the symptoms might be relatively mild. But it's the biggest story because of two things. Number one is the uncertainty. We saw that in markets. Investors really had the jitters here and overseas, some big sell-offs initially and then a recovery. The other reason this story is the biggest is because of the government's response to Omicron. It was a pretty measured reaction overall. Travel bans on the 9 African countries, delaying the arrival of international students and visa holders, that all seemed to be pretty well received. But the state governments, with obviously the exception of WA, which needs no excuse whatsoever to close borders, generally the state governments didn't rush to close borders and didn't introduce lockdowns. And that's a major change and one that gives, I think, a little bit of certainty for the future as new strains emerge, which they will.
I agree. That is the biggest story of the week. But a special mention for the Sex Discrimination Commissioner Kate Jenkins' report into sexual harassment in Parliament House. It said that 1 in 3 people in Parliament House have been sexually harassed. Add bullying and you're at 50%. Now, it includes a number of recommendations, including setting up an independent complaints body, developing an alcohol policy, setting clear standards. The following day, a former staffer of Education Minister Alan Tudge, who had an affair with the MP in 2017, alleged it was abusive. These are really serious allegations. Both Mr. Tudge and the staffer, Rachel Miller, have previously acknowledged the affair, but it just took another step this week. Now, Mr. Tudge denies the allegations. That process will be followed through. Very, very serious issue for all of us to consider.
Yeah, absolutely right. All right, let's move on to the most remarkable story this week. And I think this was a no-brainer because the list of the highest paid chief executives in the country came out. No one's surprised to see the boss of Macquarie Bank on the top of the list, $16 million. But what is remarkable is the rise up the list of Ruslan Kogan, who's
remarkable. Crazy.
It is extraordinary. He's a co-founder and CEO of Kogan.com, the online retailer. His pay jumped from a casual $600,000 to $9 million. Just incredible. It was all tied to the soaring Kogan.com share price, but that share price has now gone backwards by about 60%. No wonder shareholders have lodged a pretty strong protest vote against the company's executive pay, Sean.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Most remarkable story of the week. What I'd like to say is to take money from Mr. Kogan if the share price goes backwards. They gave it to him when it went up. Why not take it from him when it goes backwards?
We will see if that happens. Probably a little bit unlikely. All right, Sean, what do you reckon was the sleeper story of this week?
Well, for me, it's oil prices. They're falling, but no one's talking about it. What we did find out this week from the Australian Institute of Petroleum is that pump prices around the country have hit all-time highs. In Hobart and Melbourne, they're at 179 cents a litre. Brisbane, they're at 185.5 cents a litre. For the last couple of days, the Omicron variant of COVID-19 has spooked markets. OPEC said it's going to pump out more supply. Petrol prices are coming down. Well, at least they should, theoretically. No one's talking about that. Don't fill up this weekend. Wait till Monday or Tuesday. That's why it's a sleeper story.
I do wish, Sean, that you told me that a couple of days ago because I have a full tank of petrol at exorbitant prices right now. And so because of my full tank of fuel, I'm going to agree with you that is the sleeper story of the week. Favourite story, Sean, what was it for you?
Well, mine, Michael, was an interview with Jane Herdlicker, the CEO of Virgin Australia. She was very open, very candid, talked about how difficult it was managing over the last 12 months within the travel industry, how she kept employees engaged, why it was better not being a listed company. Remember, it went into voluntary administration and private equity group Bain bought it early last year. She hopes that Virgin can once again become a dominant player in the market, and her goal is 1/3 of domestic passenger routes are flown by Virgin. Loved the interview, loved her candid nature.
Yeah, it was a great interview, and you can find that at fearandgreed.com.au. Sean, funnily enough, my favourite story this week was also one about planes. No one's been flying a huge amount over the last 18 months, but people have still been accruing Qantas frequent flyer points. So the airline has held its second frequent flyer points auction, where they're essentially trying to offer fairly unique experiences in an attempt to get people to offload the points that they've been hoarding and reduce the liability on Qantas's books. You can get items like retired business class seats and drinks carts. But how about this one? 2 business class flights to London, 8 nights at a 5-star hotel, helicopter tour, a tour around the city in a Mini, a bunch of other things. It was the first item sold in the auction, valued at about $40,000. It sold for just, and I say just and it probably shouldn't, 2.52 million Qantas points. I don't reckon that's too bad. I can't afford that, obviously. I've got nowhere near that many, but I don't reckon it's too bad.
Yeah, you're probably right. Frequent flyers, some would have that many.
Yeah, somebody would, just not us. Okay, there we go. 5 minutes and pretty much everything you need to know in the world of business. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thanks, Michael.
We'll be back on Monday morning with the top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and we look forward to your company then.